You're listening to Systemic Era Podcast. The failure was designed.
Ketanji Brown Jackson airs dirty laundry in public clash with Kavanaugh over helping Trump by Erik De La Garza. Supreme Court Justices Ketanji Brown Jackson and Brett Kavanaugh sparred publicly on Monday over how the court has repeatedly stepped in to aid policies pushed by President Donald Trump. The rare exchange occurred during a joint appearance at a federal courthouse event in Washington, D.C., where the two justices discussed the court's growing use of emergency rulings, often referred to as the shadow docket. According to NBC News, Jackson, who has frequently dissented in such cases, sharply criticized the High Court's increased willingness to intervene early in legal challenges involving the Trump administration. "I just feel like this uptick in the court's willingness to get involved is a real unfortunate problem," Jackson said. The court's conservative majority has repeatedly used emergency orders to block lower court rulings that halted parts of Trump's agenda, including moves allowing the administration to fire thousands of federal workers, assert control over previously independent agencies, and implement elements of the MAGA administration's immigration policies. Jackson warned Monday that the court's practice could also inadvertently signal to lower courts how the Supreme Court might ultimately rule, creating a warped kind of proceeding, according to NBC News. "It's not serving the court or this country well," the Biden appointee said. Her line drew applause from a packed audience, which included more than a few lower court justices, The Wall Street Journal's James Ramos reported. Kavanaugh defended the court's actions, arguing that justices must respond when the government files emergency applications. "None of us enjoy this," he said, adding that similar requests were made by prior administrations, including during the Biden era. The public back and forth on Monday marked a rare moment between the two sitting justices. The justices have aired their disagreements in written opinions, but this was a rare example of two justices entering into a public debate about internal court business, NBC News reported.
Our analysis, a deep dive into the Supreme Court's shadow docket drama. In a rare illuminating debate, Supreme Court Kavanaugh believed that the first contentious in simmering the surface seats, the burden to the full shadow docket. This exchange, which unfolded at a federal courthouse event in Washington, D.C., grants us a rare glimpse into the ideological divide threatening the integrity of the court. Ketanji Brown Jackson emerges as the voice of reason amid the court's increasingly dubious forays into emergency rulings that have, more often than not, favored policies pushed by the Trump administration. Her criticism underscores a troubling trend: the Supreme Court's conservative majority leveraging emergency orders to sidestep lower court decisions that have impeded parts of Trump's agenda, from federal workforce purges to the usurpation of control over previously independent agencies and the enactment of draconian immigration policies. Jackson's rebuke is not just about procedural overreach. It's a clarion call highlighting how these actions erode the judicial process and, by extension, democracy itself. Jackson's concerns that this practice could signal to lower courts the Supreme Court's potential final ruling is a stark warning. It speaks to a warped kind of proceeding, where the outcome is telegraphed ahead of the rigorous, transparent analysis that justice is supposed to require. This is not merely an internal procedural quibble. It's an alarm bell on the court's shifting sands, moving from a body of last resort to an active participant in shaping policy through opaque, expedited decisions. The applause she received from an audience peppered with lower court justices underscores the resonance of her critique among those who navigate the impacts of the Supreme Court's decisions firsthand. On the flip side, Brett Kavanaugh, in his defense of the status quo, offers a perspective that feels both dismissive and disconnected from the gravity of Jackson's critique. His argument that the court must respond to emergency applications filed by the government and that this practice spans administrations glosses over the significant increase in such interventions during the Trump era and the consequential nature of the policies being pushed through. Kavanaugh's attempt to normalize the court's actions under the guise of duty and historical precedent fails to address the core issue at stake: the integrity and impartiality of the judiciary. This public disagreement between Jackson and Kavanaugh is not just a rare peek behind the Supreme Court's stoic facade. It is a manifestation of a broader, more critical debate about the court's role in American democracy. The increasing reliance on the shadow docket raises questions about transparency, accountability, and the balance of power. It's a shift that seems to serve the interests of a political agenda rather than the principles of justice and due process. This episode also highlights a fundamental tension within the Supreme Court, one that mirrors the polarized state of American politics. The justices, though often seen as above the fray, are not immune to the ideological battles that shape our country. Their decisions, whether handed down through formal rulings or the shadowy expedited processes of the shadow docket, have real, lasting impacts on the fabric of American society. In essence, the public spat between Jackson and Kavanaugh is more than just inside baseball for legal aficionados. It's a symptom of a judiciary at a crossroads. The integrity of the Supreme Court, and by extension, the very notion of justice in America, hangs in the balance. As this drama unfolds, one can't help but wonder who will steer the court back towards its foundational principles of fairness, transparency, and impartiality. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Raw Story for today's article, with the automated voices of Amy and Ryan. Thanks for listening.